My girlfriend bought her own ring, staged a proposal at a family barbecue, and handed me the box in front of both our families. I handed it back. My girlfriend Brooke and I had been together for 2 years. We met through a mutual friend at a cookout, started dating a month later, and things were good for the first year. She was fun to be around, easy to talk to, and we got along in the way where you don't have to try too hard. Then somewhere around month 14, she started talking about marriage. Not the way couples talk about the future, like it was a deadline I was missing. She'd bring it up at dinner, she'd bring it up in the car, she'd hold her phone in my face when a wedding post came up and say when. I told her I wasn't against getting married. I wanted to do it when the time was right and when I could afford a ring that meant something. I was 26, working as an electrician, paying off my truck, saving on the side. I wasn't dragging my feet, I was being realistic. Brooke didn't see it that way. She told her mother, Val, that I was stalling. Val told my mother, Angie, that I was wasting Brooke's time. Angie told me to handle it before it became a bigger problem. Brooke started bringing up her friend Tammy, who got engaged after 11 months. She started bringing up her cousin, who got a 2-carat ring after 8 months of dating. She started leaving her laptop open to jewelry sites. Once she circled a ring in a magazine in red marker and left it on the bathroom counter, a $3,000 ring. I made decent money, but I also had rent and a truck payment, and I was putting aside a little every month for exactly this purpose. I had a plan. What she didn't know was that I'd been looking at rings since month 18. I found one I liked at a local jeweler. Simple, white gold, small diamond, well made. I was 8 weeks from having it paid off. I was going to propose on her birthday in October. I had a reservation at the Italian place she loved. The whole thing was planned. Brooke didn't know because that's the point of a surprise. Then her mother threw a family barbecue in August. Both families. My parents, my brother Nico, Brooke's parents, her sister Darcy, aunts, uncles, cousins, about 30 people in Val's backyard. I thought it was just a summer get-together. We pulled up and everything looked normal. Folding tables, coolers, kids running around, the usual. About an hour in, Val clinked her glass with a fork and said she wanted everyone's attention. She said Brooke had a special announcement. I looked at Brooke. She was smiling. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small black ring box. Inside was a thick silver men's band. She held it out and said, I already bought yours. Now it's your turn. Then she pulled out a second box, the diamond ring from the magazine, the $3,000 one. She'd bought both rings, brought them to a family barbecue, and was now standing in front of 30 people handing me the ring I was supposed to put on her finger. Darcy started clapping. Val was already crying. Brooke's aunt had her phone out. Brooke held the diamond ring out and said, go ahead, do it properly. She meant get on one knee, in front of everyone, using a ring I didn't buy, at a party I didn't plan, in a moment I didn't choose. I stood there looking at 30 people waiting for me to drop to one knee and say the words. My mother was watching from the side. She looked confused. Nico was behind her, and he already looked like he knew this was going wrong. I closed the box and handed it back. I said, I'm not doing this. I didn't say it loud, I just said it. Brooke's face changed. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm not proposing right now. She said, why not? Everything is right here. I said, that's the problem. She said she did all the work because I was taking too long. She said all I had to do was ask. I told her a proposal isn't supposed to be assigned like homework. I told her I had a plan that I'd been saving for months. She said then, why didn't I just do it sooner? I said, because I was doing it on my timeline, not hers. That's when Val stepped in. She got close enough I could smell her perfume. She said, you're embarrassing my daughter in front of her whole family. What kind of man does that? Loud enough for the whole yard. On purpose. Everything about this day was on purpose. I kept my hands at my sides. I said, I didn't plan this, Val. She did. And she didn't ask me first. Val's eyes got big. She said, ask you? A real man would have done it already. A real man wouldn't need his girlfriend to do the job for him. She said it slow, so every person at that barbecue heard every word. I told her, I'm not having this conversation in front of 30 people, Val. She said, then you should have thought about that before you made my daughter cry in front of 30 people. Before I could step back, Brooke was there again. The big happy look from the ring boxes was gone. Her jaw was tight. Her eyes were wet but in a mad way. She held up the diamond ring. I spent $3,000 because you wouldn't. I picked the rings. I picked the day. I set it all up. All you had to do was say 4 words. Like the money was the same as love. I said, that's exactly the problem, Brooke. She tilted her head. The problem is, you're a coward. She said it right to my face. In front of my parents. In front of her parents. In front of every aunt and uncle and cousin in that yard. That word hit me hard. Not because I believed it, because she did. She really thought a man who says no to being put on the spot is a coward. That told me more about how she saw me than 2 years of dating ever did. Then Darcy showed up beside her like she was tagging in, arms crossed. This is so messed up. She literally handed you everything on a silver platter and you're throwing it in her face. I'd always been nice to Darcy. Drove her to the airport twice. Helped her move a couch last spring. Now she was acting like I was the bad guy in a situation her sister created. I said, did anyone think to ask me if I was okay with being put on the spot in front of my own parents? Darcy went quiet for a second. I saw something flicker, then it passed. She shook her head. You should have just said yes and talked about it later. That was the whole thing right there. Just say yes. Just go along. Just hit your mark and say your lines and everybody goes home happy except me. I felt someone walk up beside me. Nico. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there shoulder to shoulder. After a second, he leaned in. You don't have to do this, man. Let's take a walk. I almost did. But before we could step, Val turned to face the whole yard. She put her hands out like she was addressing an audience, because that's exactly what she was doing. He won't propose. After 2 years, he won't even give my daughter a ring. That tells you everything you need to know about what kind of man he is. Like she was reading a verdict. Aunts shaking heads. An uncle muttering to the guy next to him. I could feel the whole yard turning against me in real time, and every one of them only had half the story. Brooke's half. Nobody knew about the jeweler. Nobody knew about the payments. Nobody knew about October. That's when my mom stepped forward. Angie didn't shout. She didn't rush. She walked up calm and steady, the way she does when she's past the point of being upset and has moved into the part where she's not going to let anyone push her family around. She looked right at Val, not at Brooke, not at Darcy, right at Val. You don't get to talk about my son like that. Not here, not anywhere. Val straightened up like she wasn't expecting pushback. Then maybe you should have raised him to step up. The yard got so quiet I could hear ice melting in the coolers. Angie didn't flinch. Maybe you should should have raised your daughter to have a conversation instead of staging a circus. Nobody moved. Val's mouth opened and closed, but nothing came out. Brooke stared at my mother like she couldn't believe someone said that out loud. Darcy took a small step back, and I stood there in the middle of it and realized this wasn't about me and Brooke anymore. This was Val against Angie, her family against mine. Two mothers in a backyard full of folding chairs and paper plates, ready to go to war over their kids. I grabbed Brooke by the arm, not rough but firm, and pulled her toward the side of the garage. She jerked her arm away but followed. The noise from the yard felt far away. She crossed her arms and looked at me like I was wasting her time. I said, I need you to listen to me for 1 minute. She looked back. You have nothing to say that fixes this. Flat. Like she'd made up her mind and everything I could say was just noise. I said, I've been paying off a ring since April. White gold, small diamond, from the jeweler on the east side of town. 4 payments. I was going to propose on your birthday in October. I had a reservation at the Italian place you love. I watched her face. For 1 second, something changed. Her eyes got wider. Her mouth opened a tiny bit. The armor cracked. For that 1 second, I saw the Brooke I fell in love with. Then it was gone. She blinked and her face tightened back up. You're lying. She said it like she needed it to be true. I pulled out my phone, opened my email. 4 confirmations. April, May, June, July. Jeweler's name at the top. Ring description. Final payment date 8 weeks out. I held it out. She didn't take it, but she leaned in and looked. I scrolled through all 4. She stared at that screen for a long 30 seconds. Her arms uncrossed. Her hands dropped. I thought this was it. The part where she sees I wasn't stalling. I thought wrong. Her face got hard, harder than before. Her eyes locked onto mine, and there was something I'd never seen in 2 years. Anger. Real, deep, ugly anger. If you had a plan, why didn't you tell me? Her voice cracked, not from crying, from holding back. You let me sit there for months thinking you didn't care. You made me look desperate. I put my phone back. Because it was supposed to be a surprise, Brooke. That's the whole point. She shook her head fast, swatting the words away. I don't want surprises. I want commitment. And you couldn't even give me that when I handed it to you. Something clicked. This wasn't about the ring. It was never about the ring. Brooke didn't buy those rings because she was tired of waiting. She bought them because she wanted to be in charge. She wanted to pick the ring, pick the day, write the script, hand me my lines, and watch me perform. And when I showed her 4 months of proof that I had my own plan, she didn't feel relieved. She felt robbed because my plan meant she wasn't in control. She said, you should have just done it. We could have figured out the ring stuff later, but you chose to humiliate me instead. I said, you humiliated yourself, Brooke. You planned a public proposal without the person you were proposing to. That's not love. That's a performance. The words came out steady, but I felt everything inside me shaking. 2 years of dinners and road trips and holidays and late night phone calls and inside jokes and all the little things that make you think you found somebody. And it all came down to this moment by the side of a garage where I finally understood that the person I thought I knew had a completely different picture of what we were. She stared at me. Then she turned around and walked back toward the yard without a word. No comeback, no last shot. I came around the corner a minute later. Brooke was inside the house with Val. I could see them through the window. Val's arms moving fast. Brooke standing with her head down. Nico saw me and walked over. He had the look he gets when he knows something I don't. He pulled me aside near the fence. I need to tell you something. He looked around to make sure nobody was close. Before the barbecue started, when everyone was setting up, I went around the side of the house to grab the extra bag of ice. Darcy was standing near the side gate on her phone. She didn't see me. I said, what did she say, Nico? He looked me right in the face. She said, if he says yes, great. If he says no, everyone will see what kind of guy he really is. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I turned those words over one at a time like a sentence I couldn't believe was real. The barbecue wasn't a barbecue. It was a stage. The guest list was an audience. Val clinking her glass was a cue. Brooke knew. Val knew. Darcy knew. They planned the whole thing knowing I might say no. They didn't care. If I said yes, Brooke got her proposal. If I said no, I was the monster. Either way, they won. I looked at Nico. They wanted me to either propose on command or look like a monster in front of my whole family. He nodded slowly. That's exactly what they wanted. I walked over to where Angie was sitting at a folding table near the back of the yard, arms crossed, watching Val's side of the family cluster near the house. I sat down and told her what Nico told me. I told her about Darcy on the phone before the party started. The exact words. Her jaw got tight. Not the kind where someone's about to cry. The kind where someone's about to do something. So this was planned. Val knew. Darcy knew. They set you up. I nodded. She was quiet for 3 seconds, which for my mom is a long time. Then we're leaving. But before she could stand, the back door opened and Brooke walked out. Val behind her. Whatever Val had said inside put fuel back in the fire. The Brooke coming through that door wasn't the same one who walked away from me 10 minutes ago. She wasn't hurt anymore. She was angry. On a mission. She walked straight to the center of the yard, to the same spot where she'd held up the ring boxes. People were standing in small groups, pretending to check their phones, all watching out of the corners of their eyes. Brooke stopped in the middle and said it loud enough for everyone. For everyone wondering, he said no. He didn't just say no to the proposal. He said no to me. After 2 years, he's choosing to throw this away over his ego, like she'd been rehearsing it. A couple of aunts shook their heads. A cousin in a baseball cap said out loud, that's cold. Just like that, Brooke took control of the story. Told 30 people her version before I could say a word. I had a choice. I could walk out that gate right now with my family and let her version be the only one anyone heard. Or I could speak. I looked at Nico, hands in his pockets. He gave me a small nod. I looked at Angie. She looked up. Tell the truth, all of it. My heart was going fast. My hands were shaking, but I pressed them flat against my sides and stepped forward. I walked to the middle of that yard. Same spot. Conversation stopped. Someone put down a drink. Val was near the back door with her arms crossed. Brooke was off to the side, eyes narrow. Darcy a few feet behind her, phone in her hand. I said, I want to say something, and then I'm leaving. It got quieter. I've been saving for a ring for 4 months. I've been making payments to a jeweler since April. I had a plan. I had a date. I had a reservation at a restaurant for October. I let it sit. One of Brooke's uncles tilted his head like he was hearing something he didn't expect. Brooke never asked me if I wanted to be proposed to at a barbecue. She never asked me if I was okay with being put on the spot in front of both our families. She decided, and she expected me to go along with it. A breath. And before this party even started, Darcy was on the phone by the side gate telling someone that if I said no, everyone would see what kind of guy I really am. They knew I might say no. They planned for it. This wasn't a proposal. This was a trap, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend it's okay just because there are people watching. The yard went completely silent, not waiting for the next thing quiet. The kind where nobody knows what to say because everything they thought they understood just got turned inside out. Val's face turned red. Not embarrassed red, caught red. Brooke stared with her mouth open just a little. Darcy slowly moved her phone behind her back like that was going to undo what I'd said. Nobody clapped. Nobody said a word. Nobody on Brooke's side jumped in to defend her. Nobody called me a liar. They all saw the ring boxes. They saw Val clinking that glass like she'd rehearsed it. They saw Darcy clap on cue. It was a production, and now everyone knew the script. Val finally spoke. She pointed her finger right at my chest. You think you're some kind of hero? You just destroyed my daughter's happiness in front of her whole family. I said, you destroyed it when you helped her plan this without me. A proposal involves two people, Val. You turned it into a show. Calm, clear. The truth doesn't need volume. She said, she waited 2 years. Like 2 years was a prison sentence. I said, and I was 8 weeks away from asking her. 8 weeks. You couldn't wait 8 weeks. I watched it land, the way a rock hits a window. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again, then took a half step back, and for the first time all day, Val had nothing. Then Brooke stepped forward into the space Val had backed out of, and she was shaking. Not the fake kind, real shaking. Hands, shoulders, bottom lip. So what now? You had your little speech. Are you happy? I shook my head. No, I had something real planned, something that was supposed to be about us. Just us. And you took that from me because you couldn't trust me. My voice cracked on the last part, and I hated that it did. That was the part that hurt most. After 2 years, she looked at me and saw a guy who needed to be forced into a commitment he was already making on his own. She said, I didn't trust you because you never gave me a reason to. Flat. Like a fact she'd decided on. Normally that would have knocked the wind out of me. Not today. Today I was done searching for mistakes I didn't make. I said, I gave you 2 years. Every weekend, every holiday, every phone call at midnight when you were upset. If that wasn't enough for you to wait 8 more weeks, then maybe we don't want the same thing. Darcy came back. She must have been watching from near the house. She stepped in front of Brooke like she was protecting her. You're really going to throw away a relationship because of how she proposed? Like the method didn't matter. Like being cornered in front of an audience was a small detail I should look past. I said, you were on the phone before the barbecue started telling someone that if I said no, everyone would see what kind of guy I am. You knew this was a setup. You helped plan it. So don't talk to me about throwing things away. Her face dropped. Not slowly, like someone cut the strings. She looked at Brooke. Brooke didn't look back. She looked at Val. Val was staring at the ground. Darcy turned and walked inside without another word. She didn't defend herself. She didn't deny it. The screen door shut behind her with a sound that felt a lot like an answer. Brooke was alone now. Val had stepped back to the edge of the patio. Darcy was inside. The aunts and uncles and cousins kept their distance. Nobody put a hand on her shoulder. Nobody said anything. Brooke looked around the yard, eyes moving face to face, looking for backup that wasn't coming. Then she looked down at the diamond ring still in her hand. She held it up, not high like before, just up enough that I could see it, like it was just between us. I bought this because I love you. Her voice was small, smaller than I'd ever heard it. Not loud like when she called me a coward, just small and tired in a way that almost made me forget the last hour. Almost. I looked at her for a long time. You bought that because you wanted to control when and how I said yes. That's not love, Brooke. That's a deadline. She flinched. I said, I loved you. I had a whole plan to prove it, but you didn't want my plan. You wanted yours. And that's the part that breaks my heart. I didn't wait for her to answer. I turned around and walked toward the driveway. Nico fell in beside me, matching my steps the way brothers do when one of them needs the other to just be there. Angie and Vernon were already at the car. They must have started walking the moment I turned around. I was about 15 feet from the car when I heard it. Brooke's voice, not shouting, loud enough for the whole yard, loud enough so she knew I'd hear it. You just ruined the best thing that ever happened to you. I didn't turn around. I kept walking. The best thing that ever happened to me wouldn't have ambushed me at a barbecue. The best thing that ever happened to me would have trusted me for 8 more weeks. Nico walked beside me. Almost at the car, he said quietly, you good? I shook my head. No, but I will be. I opened the back door and got in. Nico got in on the other side. Angie reached back between the seats and squeezed my shoulder. Didn't say a word. That one squeeze said more than every speech Val gave all day. Vernon started the engine. Didn't ask what happened. Didn't ask if I was okay. Just put the car in reverse and backed out like he'd been ready to leave for an hour. As we pulled out, I looked back through the rear window. Folding tables, coolers, paper plates nobody was eating off of, 2 ring boxes sitting open on a folding table, one with the silver men's band, one with the diamond, both sitting in the afternoon sun like props from a play that got shut down mid-show. And Brooke, standing alone in the middle of it all. Nobody next to her, nobody holding her hand, just standing there in the same spot where she'd held up those ring boxes and asked me to get on one knee. I turned forward and looked at the road ahead and felt something settle in my chest. Not peace. More like the feeling when a storm finally passes and everything is wrecked, but at least the wind stopped. I pulled out my phone. The Italian restaurant reservation was still on my screen, saved in my calendar for October. I looked at it for a second, then I deleted it.